Obviously, Narad is making this prediction, or he is telling us, yes, this is going to happen. And what he is saying is perfectly right if you see in the totality of context for two or three reasons. Firstly, Narad is one who comes from the overmind region. So his knowledge, his grasp of things transcendental will be through the overmind instrumentality. And so what he is going to speak will carry the stamp of that overmind knowledge. It doesn't have that full blazing authenticity, completeness, power, strength as it comes directly from supermind. He is hinting, he is suggesting these are the power. Not that these are wrong, but his station is there. It's like us. We can predict on a mental level, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. He is now seeing it from the mind plane, what is likely to happen. And this is in the context of that mind knowledge and the capability of mind receiving the higher intuition and knowledge. It is in that context he is speaking that thing. And therefore he is perfectly all right. Awake the silence to immortal earth, awake the mortal life shall house eternity's bliss. So that is perfectly understandable from the point of view of Narad's station, you see, his personality and all that. That is one thing. The other thing is, and the real thing is, even if Narad has the knowledge which is given here in the 11th book, it's very likely that he has that full knowledge also. Even granting that, it cannot be this he would say. He will only say this. Because that thing has to happen only after Savitri has conquered death. Only when Savitri has vanquished death, then only that will happen. Until then, all that you can say is what Narad is saying. So the real difference between what Narad is speaking and what the divine boon is granting is that in one case there is the presence of death still present, death is still present. In the other case, death has disappeared. And therefore, the full power, life divine shall be here on earth. That assertion can come only when death is removed. Narad cannot say that at this stage. Savitri has still to do her work. He is simply, at this point, initiating Savitri to do the yoga of Shakti, Shakti Yoga. When Savitri had done the Shakti Yoga, acquired the full divine power in her soul, and faced death and conquered death, then she becomes victorious and the floodgates of the divine presence open out. Until then, no. So all that Narad can say at this stage in the presence of death, only this much. He can't say more than that, you see. Which also means that the world redeemer's task at this point is not really so much concerned with the conquest of death. Conquest of death. World redeemer can do certain things up to a certain point. All this will happen, but not conquest of death. Christ came, Buddha came, Krishna came. They were world redeemers. They were not conquerors of death. You will not conquer the truth. This is the word you must task, you see. Well, then shall the world redeemer's task be done. So this is a little futuristic. And therefore then, the next section opens 110. Till then, must life carry its seed of death. There you are, you see, he's now very clear. As long as death is there, well, this is the seed of death. And sorrow's plaint be heard in the slow night. Yeah, you will always feel sorrow, suffering, misery until then. Till the world redeemer's task is done, you are helpless. Seed of death is be always there. Sorrow will be always sorrowing. And therefore Narada is addressing, O mortal, bear this great world's law of pain. You can't escape it. You have to accept the law of pain. Till the world redeemer's task is done. At the most, what you can do is, when the world redeemer comes, you can help him. You can be his instrument. Otherwise, you have to bear it. You can't help it. Oh mortal. Now, of course, here, in the direct conversation, Narada is addressing, this whole answer is to the queen. This whole answer is, technically speaking, is to the queen. So, this mortal is the queen. He is addressing to the queen, to Savitri's mother. You are a mortal. You have to accept pain. You can't help it. You have to accept pain. Of course, through her, he is addressing it to the entire humanity. Therefore, mortal. He is addressing to the creature of the mortal world, Mrityu Loka. In thy hard passage through a suffering world, lean for thy soul's support on heaven's strength, turn towards high truth, aspire to love and peace. Yes, you are helpless. As long as the world redeemer's task is not done, you have to bear pain. Sorry, there is no escape for that. You have to bear pain. But while bearing pain, you can do a couple of things. Narada is saying, yes, you have to bear, that cannot be escaped. But it is good if you do a couple of things. And therefore, he is giving a kind of a sermon. Narada, what the mortal should do while you are carrying the load of suffering and all that, what you should do. What you should do? Lean for thy soul's support on heaven's strength. That is the best thing that can happen. Let your soul come forward and let it receive the strength of heaven. If it can receive the strength of heaven, then the world's law of pain will not afflict you, will not trouble you. Let your soul come forward. Lean for thy soul's support. Let it come out and do this. Turn towards high truth. Aspire to love and peace. So in the meanwhile, as long as death is there, as long as pain is there, as long as the world redeemer's task is not done, you at least do these things. Let your soul come out and ask for the strength of heaven to bear the pain, the misery, the suffering. Turn towards truth. Aspire to love, aspire for peace. Do that. Let your aspiration be kindled. And if that is done, then it will be safe for you also. A little bliss is lent thee from above. When these things can happen, a touch divine upon the human days. Make of thy daily way a pilgrimage. That is what he says. Let it be a path towards God. All your routines, daily activities which you are engaged with, in which you are engaged, let them be an offering to the divine. Make daily way a pilgrimage. All the routines which you are engaged with, let them become a pilgrimage towards God. For through small joys and griefs, thou movest towards God. That is the assurance he is giving. You are a mortal, you are suffering, you are bound to suffering, but there is a little key available to you with which you can open some windows, some doors, and get some light and some happiness. Go slowly, he says. So he is giving a kind of a sage advice to the mortal what he should do in the present condition of suffering. What he should do in the present. That is the sermon, so to say. Haste not towards Godhead on a dangerous road. Don't be in a hurry to reach your goal of God. Haste not towards God because it is a dangerous road. Go slowly, go carefully. Open not the doorways to a nameless path. You don't know who is sitting across the road. You have no idea at all. He may be a sort of a helpful friend. He may look to be a helpful friend, but you don't know if he is going to deceive you or not. It's very likely that he will deceive you. It's a dangerous road. Open not thy doorways to a nameless power. He is telling her very firmly to the mortal. There are powers here which can misguide you, which can take you astray, which can lead you astray, which can take you away from your path. Climb not to Godhead by the Titan's road. Don't be impatient. Don't force issues. Go slowly. Don't claim the big heavenly prize. Go slowly. In fact, that is exactly the price. In fact, that is exactly the advice which is also given by the Divine Mother to Ashwapati when they met on the threshold mine in the third book, Canto 4, 89.16. She says, you are asking me to come down. She is anticipating that prayer. 89.16. Too immense my danger and my joy. Don't call me down in a hurry. Don't call me down in a hurry. Awake not the immeasurable descent. Speak not my secret name to hostile time. Man is too weak to bear the infinite's weight. Truth born too soon might break the imperfect earth. And then she goes on and she says, 26:89-26, last sentence. Heaven's disregard beholds him from above. In the house of nature, a perturbing guest, a voyager twixt thoughts in constant show, a hunter of unknown and beautiful power, a nomad of a far mysterious light, in the wide ways, a little spark of God. Against his spirit, all is in dire league. A Titan influence stops his Godward gaze. Around him hungers the unpitying void. The eternal darkness seeks him with her hand. Inscrutable energies drive him and deceive. immense, implacable deities oppose. So she is telling Ashwapati, don't be in a hurry, things will happen in the due course of time. Don't force the issue. And here Narada is also giving very sage advice. Go in a sober, quiet manner. Follow the advice. Ask for peace, ask for love, ask for joy. But don't force the issue. Climb not to Godhead by the Titan's road. Don't force the issue. Again, the law, he pits a single will. Across the way, he throws his pride of might. His pride of might. He means stands for Titan. Again, the law, he pits his single will. Again, the divine working, it is he who is putting his will. Single will. Now, he, actually grammatically, Titan's road, he stands for Titan's road. But it is essentially, grammatically, it should be road. But here it is definitely Titan. You see. He stands for Titan. Across his way, he throws his pride of mind. Heavenward, he clambers on a stair of storms, aspiring to live near the deathless sun. Well, you are in a hurry. You want to go and live in the light of the sun directly, but you don't know, you have no capacity to bear the intensity of sun's light. He strives with a giant strength to wrest by force from life and nature the immortal's right. He takes by storm the world and fate and heaven. He, the Titan, that is what he does. He is in a hurry. He comes not to the high world maker's seat. He walks not for the outstretched hand of God. Even the hand, even if God is going to offer him a hand, he will not accept that thing. He is in a hurry. He waits not for the outstretched hand of God to raise him out of his mortality. God may come and help you try to come out. He is not. He is in a hurry. He wants to go up straight. You see. And all he would make his own, leave nothing free, stretching a small cell to cope with the infinite. Obstructing the God's open ways, he makes his own estate of the earth's air and light, a monopolist of the world energy. He dominates the life of common men. Well, this is the picture of a possessive man who wants to dominate. The vital instinct, when it is strong, that is the titanic force. This is what he wants. He is in a hurry to change things, but it cannot be like that. His pain and others' pain, he makes his means. If you suffer, he doesn't care. That is his way of doing things. On death and suffering, he builds his throne. That is the Titan's road. That is the Titan's road. War, yes. On death and suffering, he builds his throne. In the hurry and clangor of his acts of might, in the riot and excess of fame and shame, by his magnitudes of hate and violence, by the quaking of the world beneath his tread. So while he is walking, the entire world is shaking actually. This is what happened, you see. This is what happened. When the titanic forces, when the hostile forces get released, then the whole world quivers. And our history is full of those things. By his magnitudes of hate and violence, by the quaking of the world beneath his tread, he watches himself against the eternal calm and feels in himself the greatness of a God. Power is his image of celestial self. This is all that he respects. Power. That is all he respects.